first floor, Oakland.
Recording in progress.
Do you want me to start again? I'm good. All right, with the option for participation via teleconference. Please note the board members participating via teleconference are all doing so in a location posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting that are open and available for public participation. You can download the agenda and presentation materials at www.capitolcorridor.org/CCJPA-board/. All speakers, including CCJPA board and staff, are requested to announce their name as they begin to speak. For public participants who joined in person, if you'd like to provide public comments, please complete a request to address the board form available at the entrance to the boardroom and hand it to the secretary before the item is considered by the board. For public participants who joined by phone, your microphones are automatically muted. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hand when public comment is announced. When it is your time to speak, you may need to dial *6 to accept the unmute request. For public participants who joined via Zoom, please use the raised hand feature if you wish to speak. To board members and staff who've joined via Zoom, please mute your microphones whenever you're not speaking to avoid background noise. If you wish to make a general public comment on a subject not on the agenda, you'll be given an opportunity to speak under item 7. However, if you have a comment on an item which is on the agenda, we will take those comments after the staff presentation and prior to the board discussion. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person per item, and you can certainly augment your comments in writing afterwards. Comments which have been received via email by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, June 17th have been provided to the board and will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. Comments received after that will be provided to the board at the following meeting. Board members, to reduce confusion throughout the meeting, when it's time for director's remarks, I will call for board member comments. I will speak last in the interest of time and to provide an opportunity for equal participation. Please try to keep your comments concise. We have a very, very full agenda today, and it's an important thing. So we do want to hear your comments, but please be cognizant of we have a very, very full agenda. And then let me do this. This is the best part of reading this. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Bob Franklin. Bob, raise your hand, who will be serving as the interim secretary for CCJPA. This concludes the report of the chair. Thanks very much. All right, we're ready to go. We're gonna do, who are we gonna have? Will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sure. Sorry. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. Well, as I always do, I did the report of the chair out of order, so you'll get used to that. Is it Bob or Robert?
It's Bob.
Okay, Bob. I like. All right. Next up is our consent calendar. Consists of 9 items. I will ask if it. Can I go out and then come back in and then?
I think we need public comment on the report of the chair.
Oh,
Well,
let's do roll call first. Wow.
Okay.
I'm going to blame Board Member Broadway for the conversation that didn't allow me to prep mentally before we got here today. All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Chairperson Howdeshell. Here. Vice Chair Melissa Hernandez.
Present.
Director Byrd. Director Broadway.
Here.
Director Dickinson.
Here.
Director Chapman. Here. Director Foley.
Present.
Director Frericks. Director Alba Hernandez.
Here.
Director Jane.
Here.
Director Lee.
Here.
Director Reed,
Here.
Director Rayburn, Director Schaefer, Director Sell,
Here.
Director Wright,
Here.
Alternate Director Brewer, Director Jones, Director Kennedy, Director Boy, and Director Vega.
Here.
We have a quorum. We have a quorum.
And Director
Director
Rayburn has
Byrd.
arrived, so
I don't know if you heard me. I said I was here. I didn't have sound. Do you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
all right. So we did the call to the order, we did the roll call, we did the pledge. Prematurely did the report of the chair. Thank God Rayburn wasn't here when I got it out of order. He would take me in and tutor me, and that's what he would do. So we are at item 4, the consent calendar. And also Director Lee suggested I should ask for any public comment on the report of the chair. Is there any public comment on the report of the chair? Okay. All right, that takes us to the consent calendar. Consists of 9 items, which are routine in nature. Is anyone interested in removing any? Yes, Director Rayburn.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item 4.
Okay, item 4, the approval of the Zentrans agreement amendment for California Integrated Travel Project. Anything else? All right. Any members of the public interested in removing any items from the consent?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
hi, it's Roger Dickinson.
Hey, Roger.
I'm looking at the screen, so I'm not looking at the agenda, but the investment policy, just have a question or two about that. So I don't know if you want to take that with the consent and I can ask my questions or pull it and take it separately.
Let's pull it and take it separately. Okay.
Okay,
I just apologize, Roger. I got to figure out how on the screen I can see those who are behind me. All right. With that, we will entertain a motion on consent calendar items 1, 2, and 3, items 5, 6, 7, and 8. Do I have a motion?
Chair Hattershelt, I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
All right. All those in favor? Oh, you need a roll call because we have virtual.
Okay, Chairperson Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Melissa Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Byrd,
Hi.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
aye.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Frericks, Director Alba Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Reed,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Schaefer, Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright.
Aye.
I don't know, is Director Brewer here? And Director Vega.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we'll take up agenda item, consent agenda item 4. Director Rayburn, do you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question regarding the procurement. And does that include the mobile devices that conductors on the trains utilize?
Yeah, this is Rob Padgett, Managing Director. So the item number 4 is for the entire Cal ITP program. That is a statewide program. We've been the fiscal sponsor of that. Distinct from that is the Tap to Ride program, which we're doing here at Capitol Corridor. For the Tap to Ride program, we use 3 different contracts. One of those contracts, this is a statewide contract, is for the procurement of the readers. So that is not included in the item that's listed.
Thank you. That's the clarification I needed. I'll raise an issue during our discussion of Tap to Ride. I'll move approval of item 4.
All right, Director Rayburn moves approval of item 4. Is there a second?
I'll second Director Alma Hernandez.
Okay. Roll call.
And we do have a public speaker on this item, Alita,
Oh, okay. Yes, thank you.
Alita
Take the
Dupree.
Speaker.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bruce Haudeselt.
Yeah, that's fine.
Alita Dupree for the record, she and her with Team Folds. There's my clock. Thank you for bringing this item forward. While I'm not real familiar with the complexities of multiple contracts, the things mentioned certainly have importance to the work we do. I have some experience with Cal ITP, not just with your Tap to Pay program, which I have used recently, but in using the Flyaway bus in Los Angeles, some of which I wrote in my letter, which hopefully will get in bigger print for you to read and enjoy. And the mention of the mobile readers on the trains. Fortunately, on my most recent trip, the conductor did have the appropriate mobile reader in their possession. And, you know, it's just the right thing to do. They're welcome to check my fare. Thing is, I'm getting off in 3 minutes. Berkeley to Emeryville, it's a very short ride. So I might be off the train by the time you come back. So certainly all this work on a statewide basis, which includes our participation, is essential in ensuring most up-to-date and user-friendly methods of paying fare. And I've been watching some YouTube videos of transit travelers who travel around the state on bus systems that I've never heard of. And they pay with their cards or their phones because of Cal ITP. So I don't know much about the ZenTrans, but if this will help us get us the mobile readers that are appropriate for the conductor's work and get us a more advanced system, so be it. We should do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment on this item? All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
Aye.
Director Chapman. Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Rid,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chairperson Haudescheld.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Right. All right. We're now take up item 9. Director Dickinson, you asked this to be pulled.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. In looking at the policy, it doesn't appear to me on the face of it that it has any limitations with respect to those things in which investments can be made. For example, tobacco related companies or firm sources. So initially, I just wanted to ask, because there's a reference to LAIF, whether or not there are any such limitations in the investment policy, such as I've referred to.
Get an answer for you here shortly.
Yeah, we'll have Joe Beach, our CFO, take that question.
Good morning. For the record, Joe Beach, Chief Financial Officer for BART. The LAIF funds are only invested, they're not invested in public companies. They're not invested in any company that would produce, tobacco or firearms. It's really limited to Treasury agency securities, certificates of deposit, very conservative, risk-free investments. So I don't think, just like the BART general investment policy, they don't have those type of limitations either, because we don't invest in public companies or even mutual funds that hold securities of public companies, or at least they're the shares of those securities.
Okay, thank you. So as a practical matter, you're saying there aren't investments of the sort that are often discussed in terms of public investment policies. It sounds like, Joe.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I'm in that event, I'm fine with the investment policy, Mr. Chair, and would move its approval.
We have a motion by Director.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson.
Aye.
Director Chapman. Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Jade,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Reed,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright.
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Hernandez,
Aye.
Chairperson Haldeshelt.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we'll next move to action and discussion items and our approval or approve rail safety support program for cities along the Capitol Corridor, Phase 2.
All right, Rob Paget here, and I'm gonna, this item is going to be presented by Kate Goslin. This first item relates to our continued focus on right-of-way safety. With the support of the board, we established a program back in 2022 to provide help to communities along the corridor interested in addressing grade crossing issues. Today, we're here to extend and modify the program based on our experience to date. CCJPA itself does not have jurisdiction over the roadways, nor do we own the corridor. However, we do have access to experts and information on available funding sources. Our goal with this program is to connect communities supportive of addressing safety issues, particularly at crossings. Kate Goslin, a member of our engineering team, will present this item today.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. I'm Kate Goslin, engineer at Capitol Corridor. As Rob mentioned, we have a program to incentivize our local cities and counties to improve rail safety in their jurisdiction. Through the program, we identified crossings that did not yet have any projects or programs underway for safety improvements. In those 21 cities and counties that had such crossings, we've offered them up to $50,000 in consultant assistance at no cost to them to develop safety improvement projects at crossings in their jurisdiction. The goal of this program was to leverage our existing on-call consultants to assist local road authorities in getting over the initial hurdles of rail safety projects, such as limited experience in working with the railroad, limited procurement capacity, and limited funding. Next slide. After running this program for about 2 years now, the program has largely met this goal and was a success. Of the 21 road authorities we identified with crossings along the route, 14 expressed interest in the program and participated. The levels of engagement varied across jurisdiction and project, but we were able to assist with tasks such as high-level safety assessments, conceptual designs, cost estimates, RFP development, plan review, and more. We had many wins, but also have some lessons learned to help inform adjustments to the program to better address the needs of the local communities along the corridor moving forward. Next slide. Building off the success of Phase 1, we recommend extending this program and beginning by re-engaging all the communities along the corridor. Over the past 2 years, jurisdictions may have new projects or needs that have arisen, so we would like to reach out to all of them again and discuss their priorities and how our program could help. While in Phase 1, we had many wins in engaging local jurisdictions and assisting with initial project conception, that initial push was not enough to get projects into later phases on a path towards implementation. Accordingly, the main change we suggest to how the program works moving forward is to incentivize partner jurisdictions to continue advancing projects beyond just initial conception and discussion by offering up to $50,000 in consultant assistance quarterly. Another key change we propose is addressing trespassing safety concerns. The first phase of the program focused on grade crossings. According to the FRA, since 2020, in California, there have been approximately 890 grade crossing incidents, compared to about 1,470 trespassing related incidents. Given these statistics and the interest expressed by many of the jurisdictions we spoke to get assistance with identifying trespass and prevention projects, we propose adding these types of projects to the list of eligible projects for this program. Today, we are asking for your approval of the program as outlined in your packet and as summarized briefly this morning, using up to $750,000 in state rail assistant funding to support existing on-call consultant agreement work directive for this program. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do any directors have any questions? Yes, Director Hernandez.
I have a comment rather than a question.
Okay,
Okay.
let's see if there are any questions. Robert, anybody behind me? I can't see on the screen. I can't figure out what button to push to be able to see the virtual participants.
There are no requests online or in person to speak.
Right. Do we have any public? Yes,
Okay, if I may.
question? Sure.
So you mentioned that the initial work did not necessarily create the catalyst for activity to improve those areas, but moving forward with this, did the discussions with those jurisdictions that initially participated, did it suggest that providing this would be that catalyst to move them forward?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So yeah, with the jurisdictions we've met with, a lot of them where we left off with was, this is a great project. We'd love to continue advancing this, but we still need more support to get to that next phase of getting our own, getting their own consultants on board or advancing it. So for many of them, just a little bit more push to continue coordinating with Union Pacific Railroad and continue advancing that project just a little bit further. Seemed like that might be the missing piece in taking that next step towards implementation.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, any public comment on this item? Seeing no public comment, I entertain a motion to recommend that the CCJPA. Oh, I'm sorry. You did have a comment.
Yes, I did have. a
You know, I
comment.
need more coffee, evidently, clearly.
No worries, but actually I did want to just note that I had the opportunity to participate in one of the information sessions that were being provided to communities, the different cities. We were able to see a list of how our cities ranked in regards to the level of risk based on those crossings. My city alone had 3, and 2 of them at the high classification of high risk, and have had fatalities at some of those intersections. And so that was really important. So at that meeting, I had one of our public works engineers participate. And the conversation afterwards is like, this is great. Not only do we have data, not only do we have something to do, and then how do we go about it? And that never got resolved. And so when I saw this, it was like, this is the solution to get cities like mine with more limited resources to actually help us along of not only recognizing the problem, but actually starting to make some movements that coordinated effort, not only with our jurisdiction, but with other jurisdictions as how we're supporting the rail system overall. And so I just wanted to note for those who were not aware of the information sessions that occurred, they were really helpful. And I think this is a really great next step. So I appreciate all the work that went into it.
Appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Great, and Director Wright has a question as well.
Thank you. I'm just curious, for the jurisdictions who opted not to participate, what were some of the most frequent reasons?
Some of them, we did not get a response at all, so I can't say what the reason was. Some of them, we did our best to assess current ongoing projects and programs that were happening. Some of them were saying, you know, we actually just started this project on our own and we have our consultants on board. And then some were just like, we have so many other projects we're working on relating to other traffic safety issues or other parts of the city that at this time, they just don't have the staff or funding capacity, even with the help we're offering to really look into this. So that I think kind of summarizes the main issues with that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll add, you know, the very reason we did it, and appreciate the comment, the very reason we have this program is there's a little bit of a mismatch, right? Local jurisdictions are responsible for crossings, but are not aware, they don't live day to day with all the challenges that we see. And so our goal really is to get this out there, have a public awareness campaign. In September, we'll have Rail Safety Month again. Just mentioning that today, because you'll hear from us again. That's another opportunity for us to amplify this message, and we appreciate all of your efforts to do that.
And we do have a public request to speak. We do have a request for the public to speak as well. For Roland. Roland, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I come from Europe and I see this problem all over the United States, and we're going to have to address this at the federal level at some point. That in the short term, my recommendation to you actually directly to Capital Corridor executive is to reach out to Caltrain and to learn about the latest developments in this area in terms of surveillance, detecting when a vehicle is getting onto the tracks, etc. and take it from there rather than wasting $200,000 on consultants, basically going to be reinventing the wheel all over again. And quite frankly, it's come to the point now when I'm going to be introducing everybody to what's going on in the UK. It's known as the Office of Rail and Road, and they've come up with a complete specification for every single railroad crossing about what needs to happen there to avoid the kind of issues you've got in the United States, including Brightline in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
There's no additional requests to speak.
Great. All right. Well, we'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 25-17, authorizing the executive director or their designee to expend up to $750,000 in rail assistance funding to support a rail safety program. Have a motion?
So moved.
Director.
Second, Director Wright.
Okay. Director Wright moved. You choose the second, okay?
Okay. I'm not sure.
All right. I think it was Director Vega made the second. So we'll take a roll call.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
Aye.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jade,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Ridd,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chairperson Haldeshell.
Aye. Thanks very much, everybody. All right, I'm going to get this thing running smoothly like a train, right? No rocking back and forth here. All right, we're going to get this going. The next item is approve agreements for customer relationship management and marketing, communication, and customer experience for Tap to Ride.
All right, so this is the chance to talk about Tap to Ride. So I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Communications Officer, Priscilla Collecton.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I'm here to talk with you a little bit about two project agreements that we plan to make part of our Tap to Ride contactless payment pilot program. As you know, Tap to Ride is all about making it easy for people to ride Capital Corridor by just tapping with their credit card. And we believe that this will help us grow ridership, which is where we need to go, by leaning into the convenience of not having a physical ticket. Well, we're now at the point in the pilot program where we need to build more tools and create more content to both support and attract participants to the program. I'm going to walk you through what we envision for our customer relationship management system and what's planned for Tap to Ride marketing communications, which are the agreements covered under this action item today. Next slide, please. Oh, back one slide, please. Thank you. I'm requesting board approval to procure and implement a customer relationship management system, also known as CRM. It's a software platform for Tap to Ride participants, and also procure the marketing communication services for Tap to Ride engagement and growth of participants. We need to support our customers as Tap to Ride grows. To do that, we have to build out a customer relationship management software platform. And we also have a goal to really communicate well and deliver good customer service to participants, which will require extended marketing and communication services. Both of these together will really help CCJPA create that environment of ease and convenience for Tap to Ride customers and help staff be more efficient when we're assisting them. Next slide, please. So there are several functions involved in building out our CRM system. We need a better customer interface, a good staff dashboard to use, a secure access for our customers to log into. We plan for the major portion of the development of this software system to be taking place in FY26, with the refinements happening the following year in FY27 for a total cost of an estimated $500,000. Next slide, please. And why this matters, I put this slide together because on the left side, you'll see a snapshot of our current environment, where we derive a lot of support from Amtrak in specific areas, notably, accounting for revenue, data management, sales transactions. Some of the functions are shared, as you can see with on this wheel with the Capital Corridor logo. But by and large, Amtrak handles a lot of these functions with the systems that they have developed for their ticketing system. Our Tap to Ride program expansion really requires that we take on more of these functions for the program. As you can see on the right-hand side, we are assuming management of fares, sales data, technology, and accounting of the revenue. These are all new functions for Capital Corridor to manage directly, and we need the systems to help us operate well. Next slide, please. So here's some of the elements that we'll be covering within the CRM system. We envision that the development will build upon what we're currently using, which is the Zoho software platform that we currently use for CRM, as well as some incoming customer comments. We plan to fold in the email engagement into the CRM system so that we can more easily communicate with customers who need assistance all in one place. And to help our staff, the system will also act as a dashboard where they can access CRM tools, as well as the fare adjustment tool that we've been developing, and a reports dashboard to help monitor the program. Customers will be able to access their information online in one place, whether they're coming in as a guest or looking things up via an account. And overall, we really hope that this delivers a better customer service and communication tools for us and support for the staff as well as the riders. Next slide, please. On the marketing communication side, we also have a need to keep our participants informed about the program as it changes, because it is a pilot, so we are doing changes as we go. So we need to have information materials to hand out to them for that, or to transmit to them for that, as well as attract new participants to the program as as riders come and go. The marketing communications agreement will include content creation of promotional instructional videos that help show people what's going on with the program and how to use it, as well as design and copywriting for both digital and print mediums. The budget for these efforts is $150,000 total for FY26 and FY27. Next slide, please. We're really excited to work on these much needed tools that will help propel us forward with the Tap to Ride program, and we will pursue competitive procurement for both of these contracts. These agreements are included in our operations budget in the annual business plan funding request. And since they exceed the $100,000 threshold, I am requesting the board's approval of this item. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Great questions, Director Rayburn.
Thank you very much. Currently, when you're on board a Capital Corridor train and the conductor walks down the aisle and says, "Tickets, please," their conductors are already festooned with a mobile reader that and a printer that prints out the destination that they put in the little tab above your seat. My experience with Tap to Ride over the past year, and the experience of one of the comments that you have in your customer comments this week, has been that the conductors do not carry that second mobile reader device routinely. And so when they get to you, you're with your credit card in hand and they want to read that you've tapped on, they say, "I'll come back and get you later." Well, the passenger can't take a nap. You need to kind of stay alert, work with the conductor. It's also an impingement on the conductor. So my question is, do we have in this procurement a timeline for the migration of that device function onto the devices that the conductors already carry, so that they have an integrated way of collecting all passengers' ticket information?
Rob Padgett here. I'll take that question. I'd like to comment in a couple ways on that. The first is about the conductor activity. One of the things that we know is an issue is because we had agreed with Amtrak to a very small number of participants in that first series of, in that first phase of the pilot, there was not enough activity on individual trains. So you might have a single person, a couple people on an individual train. But we learned a lot during that period, and it was a very useful time period for us to figure out some of the technology issues. We have now an agreement with Amtrak that we can increase that number up to 550 active users, I think. And we're in the process, as Priscilla talked about, in marketing this so that we can actually get more users on board. And we think that in part with training, but also just because the activity levels will go up, that even with the 2 devices, we're going to see conductors start to carry both of those. Now, your question about timeline for transitioning to having that all in the Apple device, that is the plan. I don't have a specific time frame for you today, but there's some really encouraging positive moves there. I think that the whole payments industry is very interested in this, and you're seeing this across the board in lots of different agencies being more widely adopted, and that's genuinely created some interest with Apple to work with us on this. We'll keep you posted though at subsequent meetings.
Well, that's what I really want, is to see that we have, let's say within 6 months, we have a report back on the progress that's being made with the integration of the devices, so that
we'll do that
right now,
sure.
it's a burden on the passenger and it's a burden on the conductors. And I detect that burden on the conductors, there's some minor grumbling, and they would love to have just one tool on their belt. So I think that should be the ultimate goal. And would you be able to report back on the progress in integrating these systems?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll and I'll include that in managing director's report as a routine update. We're going to start including some stats with Tap to Ride as this program grows.
I think it'll smooth out. It's a minor course correction in the big scheme of things. We're doing all the right things with the CRM to gather that information, have it available to the passengers so that you can track your usage. Right now, many of our passengers that use the multi-ride tickets, the conductors also are there to remind them that, oh, you have just one ride left. Oh yeah, I'd better renew my 10 ticket pass. But with regard to Tap to Ride, I think we can see greater migration if we remove all the barriers that exist today. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Director Rayburn. And I've violated the our not a violation, but we should have public comment before taking directors' questions or comments. So Alita Dupree, you had submitted on this. And then we'll get to you, Director Jay.
Thanks again, Chair Bruce Howdeshelt, members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Folds. I speak on this quite often, not just here, but in other systems that have open payment in various forms. And the outreach is essential. There are many who don't even know about this. They may get on a train and they'll see the reader. And it's like, oh, what is that? And maybe they'll see me tap on, which I do when I ride between Berkeley and Emeryville generally. And one conductor did actually have the reader on their person. That's the only time in all my riding of Capital Corridor. Perhaps it is cumbersome to carry these things around, and Caltrain is having some issues where they have readers that only last like 4 hours before they have to be recharged. Something has to do with Clipper too, I think. So all these different forms are coming about. And yeah, I can sense a bit of the consternation with the conductors, consternation. In saying, okay, I have some extra duty here. And one of them said, sometimes I only get one person doing this in my whole shift. So this is still very uncommon. How do we get it more common? There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but not just for the conductors, but for the user interface, such as being able to move toward being able to use the phone. Look at your phone and click on it like you do on the flyaway bus. So these contracts will help us to get where we need to go. It's a lot of work to get where we need to go so we can all be on that same sheet of music. Thank you.
There's no additional requests to adjust the board.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Director Jane. Go ahead. You had your hand raised, Director Jane.
Yes, I know this pilot was very limited, but in my experience twice, the readers that the conductors had weren't updated with the latest software, so they had to go off and update them. How long is this pilot of 500, this new pilot of 550 people going to last? Is that a 6-month pilot? And then a couple more questions. If somebody were to show up at the station and they wanted to go online and register a credit card for this, could they do it and have confirmation and authorization before they board the train? Or does it take a few days to register a credit card? And then will the new CRM solve the issue of when you tag off, it tells you how much you were charged?
Thank you, Director Jane. I can answer the second question and the third question. The second question, yes, someone, if they have their mobile device, they can register their card and receive confirmation prior to boarding the train. So that is something that exists now. Will hopefully make the whole experience a little easier with the new CRM system that will hopefully have everything tied together in one place. More seamless. The third question was, let's see, about showing whether or not there's how much is left or how much they were charged. I don't believe that that will be available on the readers, but we could certainly look into that. But what our plan is our hope is to have it available within the CRM system so that people can access that easily online.
And then regarding the pilot, our expectation and hope is that we will continue to expand that number. We're not able to answer the specifics on that because we have to do that in concert with Amtrak. And there are some requirements for manifest requirements where we have to have a list of passengers. That's an FRA requirement. So there are some issues we're working through, but we've largely worked through the technology. What Priscilla presented today is going to give us the back-end support that allows us to do this in a manner that is efficient from a staffing perspective. And as we implement these, we're going to be able to continue to expand the number of participants in the program.
I had one additional question. If you were riding with your kids, can you use the tap to ride multiple times for multiple people? And then how does that tie into the manifest that the FRA requires?
We cannot do that at this time, but I know that that is in the works to look into how we can handle parties of more than one person. So that is part of the future plans, and one of our hopes that we can bring that sometime in soon, but that's not part of the CRM system.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jane. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of technical questions regarding the CRM solution. Is this an on-prem solution, SaaS, PaaS? What's the environment for that application?
The Zoho platform is a SaaS platform, so we do subscribe to that and have a license for that every year. What we're hoping to develop is a dashboard and interface that will help tie all of these systems together. As you know, the Tap to Ride system involves a merchant portal and other pieces that go along with it. So we're trying to bring these all together in one place, not just for staff, but also for customers, so that there will be a little bit more seamlessness with the way that they interact and self-serve online for the things that they need. Things such as looking up your past transactions, looking up potentially the card that you have on file, or just what trips did I take, so that those things will be in one place for the users, but also for staff so that we are not going between different systems to help a customer answer one of their questions.
Thank you. Last question is, are there any changes to the ongoing maintenance cost of the application? Are we paying any more for support or services as we move forward?
This procurement would be largely for development, and into the next year, whatever refinements and maintenance might take place. I think that I'm hoping that there won't be a lot of maintenance costs, but we will be crossing that after we procure with the developer as to how we can develop the interface first, and then move on towards that, and hopefully have low maintenance costs because it is a SaaS system.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
There are no further questions. We'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move approval.
Okay, Director Rayburn moves approval.
Rega second.
Foley second.
Did you get that, Bob?
Yes, I did.
All right, roll call.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
Aye.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alder Hernandez,
Aye.
Dr. Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Reed,
Yay.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chairperson Haldeshell.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next item is an update on our FY25 advertising program.
All right, we're going to keep Priscilla busy. She's going to cover this one too.
Good morning again. Here I am. I'm here to provide you an update on our advertising program to date. One of our strategic goals is to really broaden awareness of Capital Corridor service throughout Northern California and, of course, grow our ridership. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit of a peek at our advertising plan to show you what we've done so far and in what will be coming in the coming months. I'll introduce our agency, describe our process and strategy, and also talk about the core themes and creative direction for the campaign. This year, we started working with Honey Advertising Agency, a firm that's based in Sacramento. Today, we have both Megan Leno and Ruby Noto joining us from Honey. They're here today. Along with the rest of their team, they bring partners KJ2 for capturing the photography and video and all the beautiful creative assets we're going to bring you, as well as Threefold, which handles media buying and ad placements for the campaign. Next slide. Together with Honey, we've been making our way through our project milestones. We've completed a kickoff. We've defined what we're calling our phase 1 lights on portion of our work. Honey conducted a discovery workshop with our team, and we've developed a campaign strategy for phase 1. For phase 1, the goal has been really to just reactivate our advertising program and develop an expanded reach, pilot and test these tactics that we're going to launch soon, that are in play right now, and ultimately build momentum towards the launch of what we're calling our hero campaign, which will be phase 2. In phase 2, the hero campaign is really what's known as like a flagship marketing effort designed to generate broad awareness and will involve multiple high visibility channels. Next slide. Of course, the project goals are to increase ridership, establish brand recognition and affinity for Capital Corridor in our markets, and highlight the benefits of traveling by train, especially our amenities and services, which you just can't get, by driving by car. For this phase, our initial campaign will really focus on positioning Capital Corridor as the journey of ease and pointing out the flexibility, comfort, and convenience of riding Capital Corridor. Next slide. The core themes, the creative direction will involve aspirational storytelling and a humor-driven approach. Here we have a behind-the-scenes snapshot from our recent photo shoot last month on board Capital Corridor. The Honey Agency is putting together the creative campaign with what they captured, and we'll be launching with new creative as soon as next month. Okay, next slide. Some of the core themes are going to focus on seamless travel and flexibility, the experience on board, promotions and practicality. And the media mix for this initial launch is basically all digital, spread across paid search, display ads, and paid social media. When we launch the larger hero campaign in phase 2, we'll go a lot bigger and launch that campaign across several channels. Okay. And that concludes my update. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Let's take any public comment on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
All right, any comments by board members? Any questions by board members? Director Wright?
Yeah, how are we measuring success from phase 1?
Yeah, so we've been gotten some preliminary reports of what's been out in the market already, which is paid search and some of the social media portions. We'll be looking at those with Honey and sort of determining our metrics as we go, because we're really sort of piloting and testing the content right now. But we'll be looking at, of course, bookings through to Amtrak.com, which handles all the bookings. We have a way to track that. We'll be looking at engagement online with our social channels, as well as just overall activity and impressions that traffic to our site, impressions that are given from the analytics provided by the different digital channels.
Okay, I would just really love to see more detail on those metrics.
Yes, of course. We can bring that at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Director Rayburn.
Priscilla, thank you very much for this. It's exciting to get the word out. And my question is really related to what venues are we targeting? And are there changes from the past years? Of course, we've lost the Oakland A's in the Oakland backyard. And I remember always hearing the Capitol Quarter ads there. So what venues are we targeting now?
Well, in terms of specific sporting or event venues, you know, Levi's Stadium is definitely one that we are focusing on. We're excited to offer Metallica service for the concerts this coming weekend. So we definitely want to make sure that we capitalize as much as we can on any large events there that draw big crowds. The other venues are, you know, we still will be working with some of the other venues, but we're also focusing on cities as destinations, you know, San Francisco and Sacramento and Emeryville and other places that we're sort of trying to profile and make sure that people are aware of what they can see in those spaces. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question. I know that we already do some educational material out there. And I know a lot of this is under the creative direction is really to share stories of what it means to ride a train. But I've witnessed how many people don't know even how to print a ticket at the kiosk.
Mm-hmm.
I have participated and shadowed at a local, you know, training for some of our seniors to actually use public transportation and got on the train and watched them completely not even know like where they can sit, like what even the most minimal entry points are still barriers to people who have never used a train. I'm wondering if we can have some of that. It's not explicitly mentioned here as part of that educational phasing in of someone who is a senior or someone who's never used train before. And I'm wondering if that is going to be included.
Yes, of course. Thank you for that comment. We did talk extensively about developing more how-to videos and other kinds of content that will help people understand what it's like on board the train or what pieces that they need to know in order to, you know, board the train, where can they sit, just all the things that you've mentioned. So that is going to be part of the campaign as we go along. I think for the initial campaign, we're focusing on sort of attracting travelers and with the creative approaches that we've defined here, but we will incorporate some how-tos into our overall campaign, as well as our organic posts.
Director Dickinson.
Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. My question is, I think related to some of the questions that have been asked, but pre-pandemic, a lot of the marketing for Capital Corridor focused on work trips and commute trips related to employment with the changing dynamics of travel with the pandemic. I'm curious, Priscilla, who we're targeting at this point. Are we targeting riders that are pleasure riders or taking outings or things of that? What's our best market that we're aiming at in terms of this marketing campaign?
Thank you for the question, Director Dickinson. We still have a very broad market that we're targeting. I think, though, you're right that it has changed quite a bit since the pandemic. The commuters are not traveling quite as frequently, though we do know that some of them have moved around. So we're hoping to win back some of them who maybe used to ride the train, but also attract any new commuters who may have moved during this time period and are unaware of our service. So we still have a strong element of attracting commuters. However, we are focusing a lot on leisure trips and off-peak travel, as we have in the past as well. So I think that there's a lot of visiting friends and family that we will focus on in our campaigns and content going forward.
Okay, thanks.
Director Jane.
Yeah, I've experienced that a number of people are confused between Capital Corridor and Amtrak. And even the trains, when they show up at the station, it's difficult to realize that the train is actually a Capital Corridor train. Is there anything we can do about that?
Yes, we do have some discussions that we've been having about making sure that we have a visibility of the Capital Corridor logo on the trains. We've been talking about that internally. Still have to go through some work on how that would happen, but we will be moving forward with that hopefully sometime this fiscal year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thanks. This is a good
We do have an additional public comment.
we have a public comment now.
Yes.
All right, we'll take that public comment.
Roland, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Roland, and this is very quick. My recommendation moving forward would be to subscribe to the Brightline website. I get emails from them nearly every day. Let me just tell you the one I'm looking at right now. Last chance, and at midnight, 25% of adult smart fares. Promo code Ride and Save, and right below that, turn every trip into a reward. And they got the rewards program, and on every day. And you won't believe the amount of useful suggestions you might get out of day just by subscribing to the email list. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just for those not familiar with the Honey Agency, the CEO and founder was the chair of the Chamber Cap to Cap trip 2 years ago, I think. And Director Broadway and I know one of their subcontractors threefold because they were very involved in a transportation measure in Placer County. So thank you for everyone's comments, and I know they will take this into consideration as they enter phase 2. That brings us to the CCJPA capital project update.
Thank you, Rob Paget here. And for capital project update today, we are going to focus on Link 21. And this will be an action item related to the Link 21 program. For those of you who were on the board in November of last year, this presentation largely reflects the same content that was presented as an information item. But today, this is coming to you as an action item to support the adoption of Stage Gate 2 and the transition of the program oversight to Capital Corridor. I will note that your packet contains a complete Stage Gate 2 report and a longer version of this presentation, but in the interest of time today, we will just hit the highlights. This item must be approved by both the Capital Corridor and BART boards. I will note that the BART board did take an action last week to support Stage Gate 2 with the transition to Capitol Corridor unanimously. For those also on the BART board, the resolution for Capitol Corridor does not include the two specific pieces that are not within the jurisdiction of Capitol Corridor. This item will be presented by Camille Zhao and Brian Zoland. Also want to welcome Brian Zoland. He's going to be joining the Capitol Corridor team. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Rob. So first, I will provide some background and context for Link 21. This timeline here, the top half is an overview of the history of the work that informed the need for a new Trans-Bay crossing. There were early studies completed by MTC, as you can see, that all considered rail capacity, crowding, and potential for additional crossing. Most recently, the state rail plan reiterated the need for Link 21. And the corridor is included in the Federal Corridor ID program. On the bottom half of the timeline, you see the funding. Link 21 program was initiated by BART's Measure RR bond funds in 2016, which called out the need to look for a future Trans-Bay corridor to relieve crowding, increase redundancy, and reduce traffic congestion. It was also named in MTC's RM3 expenditure plan, but those funds have not been used. And the program has received support from the state annually since 2019 and through grants, most notably the TIRSA funding that will be used to advance the work in the near term. So with the passage of Measure RR, it really brought focus and funding to studying this new crossing. BART and CCJPA have jointly been advancing this effort, building on those early studies done by MTC. The program is coined as Link 21, referencing the 21 counties of the Northern California mega region that you see here on the map. The idea being that a second bay crossing could deliver benefits for improving service, not just within the Bay Area core, but also throughout the mega region. Early on in the program, you see here what we identified as the challenges, goals, and objectives for providing this long-term investment in the passenger rail network. In terms of our primary purpose today, we're moving through Stage Gate 2. Here's an overview of what that process is. When we pass through Stage Gate, we are effectively deciding a set of attributes, closing the doors on those decisions, and before moving on to the next phase of work. The important piece of this is working through this decision with the key groups. You can see who we've engaged with throughout this Stage Gate process here, and it culminates with BART and CCJPA board action. As a companion to this, we have a formal report that presents the evidence to support this decision. And that really brings us to our meeting purpose. We are seeking board action on this important milestone of deciding on the train technology for the crossing, be it standard gauge or broad gauge. Staff presented this back in November 2024, and we're returning now for an action from this board. The standard gauge, that would be a new rail crossing that connects the regional rail network on either side of the bay and destinations to the larger mega region. The other option we explored was broad gauge rail, and that would connect a second BART crossing to BART's existing network. And for that, it would really focus improvements in the Bay Area region and where BART currently operates.
So before we discuss train technology, it's important to note that we will always have a need for two types of service, urban metro and intercity express service. The better our rail network supports these services, the more people will ride trains. With Link 21, the existing BART Trans-Bay crossing will continue to accommodate high quality urban metro service. A new standard gauge crossing could accommodate both urban metro and intercity express service. This happens in major cities all over the world. Trains run on standard gauge and offer both types of services. The trains in the new crossing would be modern and zero emission, similar to the new Caltrain equipment that they're running now. So these are two options that we considered but did not advance because the downsides outweighed the benefits. First, a 4-track crossing that would have 2 BART and 2 standard gauge tracks side by side was not justified because there wasn't sufficient demand to project it over the next 25 years to justify 4 tracks. Next, we looked at a dual gauge crossing, which would allow BART trains and conventional trains to share a single 2-track crossing. So essentially the 2 types of tracks are overlaid. But this crossing would have a lower capacity and require costly upgrades to the current BART infrastructure because the 2 vehicle types are designed very differently. So the next 2 maps I'm going to show illustrate how the 2 crossing types are different, especially for the passenger experience. In green, we have the urban metro system. So that consists of the BART network and the Caltrain electrified network. And in purple, we have the intercity express service, current and planned. That includes Capital Corridor and future high-speed rail up the peninsula. So with a standard gauge crossing, multiple operators could use the new crossing, resulting in fewer transfers and faster trips to places along the existing rail network, both in the Bay Area and in parts of the mega region. Pink line shows that trains traveling through a new standard gauge crossing could potentially serve the San Francisco Peninsula, Inner East Bay, and the Sacramento-Stockton areas. Next, this map shows the BART broad gauge crossing concept. In this concept, there are opportunities to reach some areas that are in need of more urban metro service, but overall, the ridership growth would come from within the existing BART network and is not as transformational as with the standard gauge concept. The pink line shows where BART trains that run on broad gauge track could travel with a new BART crossing. People traveling on intercity services from the Sacramento-Stockton or Inner East Bay would still need to transfer as they do today to get to the San Francisco Peninsula. So this is a summary of the analysis that we did comparing standard gauge with a broad gauge crossing. The first 4 criteria were not differentiators, while the others did result in a strategic advantage for choosing a standard gauge crossing. Preliminary cost estimates were similar for the 2 crossing types, but there will be more refinement needed to develop accurate cost estimates for the rest of the infrastructure improvements. This is one of the differentiators that favors a standard gauge crossing, which is the amplification of benefits for rail investments. You'll see from this map, there are many projects in the mega region which will improve the standard gauge network. And while it will take some time to implement all of these, there will be mutual benefits and increased return on investment as these projects come online. A separate but parallel project from Link 21 is the replacement of the rail bridge between Benicia and Martinez, sometimes referred to as the Carquinez crossing, or it's actually called the Sassoon Bay Bridge, which Capital Corridor will continue to study and is also included in our corridor IT work. Now Rob's going to talk about our next steps.
Yeah, so the big change here is with our funding strategy. So we are intending to use, we were awarded $11 million in TIRCIP funds, and this project is also identified in the state rail plan. The TIRCIP funds can be used to support development of this project as a standard gauge project. The other thing I'll mention, and we've talked about this many times at this board previously, is the Federal Corridor ID program, which is going to be the mechanism through which FRA develops projects and executes projects. And that will be the mechanism that determines which projects are funded. And all indications are that program is still going to continue. The other big change is the shift in program leadership to the state, with CCJPA acting in the management and policy oversight of the project. And then lastly, we do see less spending on the project, and the pace of the project will align with this corridor ID program. So the ask today is to advance a standard gauge crossing between Oakland and San Francisco and associated improvements. This is the Stage Gate 2 decision, and then transfer the leadership of the program. And I'll say that the stage gate, we've talked about this in other meetings, but the stage gate process is something that's used in the industry these days. We all change, jobs change, boards change, but what we don't want to do is always go back and start over every time we have a change in leadership. So the great thing about this decision is it lets us set this up as a point in time moving forward. It's also going to let us move forward and work with a lot of the freight railroads, which are going to be important partners in this project going forward. With that, we'll pause and look forward to your questions.
Great. Before questions, we'll do public comment. I have one public comment in the room, and we are limiting the public comment to before the directors have questions. So if anyone's on the phone or on the online that wants to make a public comment, this would be the appropriate time to do it. Thank you. And Alita Dupree.
Thanks again, Bruce Houselton, members, Alita Dupree for the record, she and her with Team Volts. Hope you got to read my letter with the very small print. We're working on it. Thank you for arriving at this decision. I think it's well-founded. In fact, I've learned a lot over time. I have looked at the dual gauge. I assure you that this decision is not a slight to BART. There are some who would have liked to have seen a BART gauge in the tunnel, but to me that just seemed more motivated by personal preference. And well, some might be hurt, but we're not in the business of hurting feelings. We're in the business of getting work done. And BART is still going to have a very important role to play in our transportation ecosystem. BART offering us this it's a metro type service, kind of part commuter rail, part subway. And I like BART almost as much as I like the New York City subway. And I submit to you that BART is the people's system. But we do need to have a up-to-date electrified standard gauge rail crossing that we can plug into the basement of the Transbay terminal. It takes longer for me to get from Emeryville to Caltrain 4th and King than it does for me to ride the new Caltrain service in their northern half of the Caltrain corridor. This plan of standard gauge will rectify that. And this is something that's complementary to BART, just as commuter rail in the New York mega region is complementary to that famous transportation system as the subway. So I think we have to do this. It's the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two people online to comment. Go ahead.
The first is Roland. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and sincere apologies for my earlier late hands raising. I forgot about the slide number, but if you look at the alignment, it is seriously weird, whereby this somehow it heads east and then it kind of makes a U-turn and eventually connects somewhere in downtown Oakland. That doesn't really make sense because back in 2014, my proposal was essentially to reconnect to the remnants of the key system just next to the now defunct, Pay Plaza to cross the bridge. So that's on the Highway 880 in Emeryville. Moving on to the San Francisco landing, I think we make it a top priority to nail that the landing is a Salesforce Transit Center. Period. End of discussion. Let's move on. And the proposal I made 14 years ago is that you've got a centerboard platform for high-speed rail, and the two outboard platforms are for BART running standard gauge and Caltrain and Capital Corridor or anything else. And you basically go across the platforms to do the transfer. So in closing, we need to address governance issues because we've got three agencies now involved in this project. The TJPA is doing the downtown extension, the DSFCT is doing the Pennsylvania Avenue. We need to consolidate the entire thing into a single project. just like that is in New York with the new Hudson Tunnel. It's called the Gateway Development Commission or Corporation. They just got an FFGA for $16 billion last year, with 77% of the funding coming from the federal government. That's the direction we need to be headed in. But before we do that, we need to get our house in order in Northern California. Thank you.
And the next speaker is David Sorrell. Please go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. David Sorrell, speaking on behalf of the Link 21 Equity Advisory Committee. We've spent the better of the last 2.5 years discussing the value of and the importance of Link 21 connecting as many neighborhoods as possible. The meetings that we had every single quarter were really critical in terms of both repairing the harms done by the legacy BART system in the early 60s and 70s to imagining what the future is going to be. And we've identified a couple of things, and one was increased access to different communities, the creation of new stations. And then the other part also was making things as affordable as possible so that the average user, not only choice riders, but those that couldn't afford a car, zero car households and the like, can be able to access the system. Those are going to be important moving forward. I do encourage, is part of our third tenet, more or less, is working together with the state, working as part of Caltrans, working as part of the other regional systems to identify ways that we can be able to improve access through partnerships, improving access through governance, and making sure that we provide a net benefit to all the communities that we serve, not just the few that can be able to use them. I encourage this board to pass the stage gate, which is kind of a symbolism of all the hard work that the Equity Advisory Committee has done. And I appreciate Camille and her team working with us to making sure that we address a lot of these concerns that many of our neighborhoods are going to have. Thank you. I yield. Have a great day.
All right, thanks, Bob. Any other public comment?
No, there's not at this time.
All right, we'll bring it up here. Director Lee, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I have a comment on this. So first, thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. And of course, thank you, staff, for your presentation today. I really deeply appreciate that both BART and Capital Corridor fulfilled the commitment I had requested to bring Stage Gate 2 back to both the BART and CCJPA boards for an actual action item after the initial presentations last fall. I'll just be clear at the top. I'll be voting yes on this action item as I did so last week in my capacity on the BART board. I just want to really make two notes here. And some of this will be a repeat of what I said at last week's BART board meeting as well. First, I do want to note that the SF County Transportation Authority wrote a letter to BART recommending that both rail technologies continue to move forward as options, which is to say the SFCTA did not support action number 1 that is before us and did not feel that the rail technology decision needs to be made at this time. I absolutely recognize that the decision of the rail technology is significant and it will forever alter the path this project moves forward on. This decision that we are taking today is to say Link 21 will not be a part of BART as BART exists today, because minus a little bit of eBART, we are, broad rail, a broad gauge rail. After some back and forth questioning with staff last week, it is clear to me that without taking both of the actions that are before us today, however, this project would indefinitely be stalled. I have been on the advocate side of very, very long-term capital projects, everything from the Bay Bridge Skyway, the bicycle pedestrian maintenance path proposed for the west span of the Bay Bridge, to Better Market Street, what had originally been envisioned as this massive full-scale overhaul of San Francisco's main downtown thoroughfare. You can probably guess those things still have not happened today. I was an advocate for those projects like literally 12 years ago. I had served on a bunch of citizen advisory committees. What kills these massive capital projects early on is when a project's existence is in limbo and there is no clear path forward for a project to continue planning and development. So while I recognize the heaviness of the Stage Gate 2 decision, I recognize that there are some detractors and some folks that don't feel like this decision should or could be made today. I do believe we have to move forward with this decision today. And I do feel like stalling and not taking this decision would start sort of a death spiral for Link 21. I know that's not what we want. The second part, the other point I wanted to make is really around governance. The decisions we make as a policy body, I think generally can be summed up as a what and a how. So what are we actually making decisions on today? So for today, you know, as a Stage Gate 2 decision. And then the how is, how are we getting to the point of making decisions and how are we actually making those decisions? So I do think that is a little bit in question for Link 21, especially as we take the action number 2 before us, which is passing over the leadership of the program and working with the state of California on this. I don't think we know what the future governance of Link 21 will indefinitely look like. I did have a lot of concerns about the sort of loss of a mechanism by the BART board to be able to influence and be part of the decision-making around what Link 21 looks like. So as part of the BART board's action last week, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with staff, and my board colleagues accepted additional action item, which is that Stage Gate 3 and you know what the future governance of Link 21 that would come before the BART board at whatever future date, recognizing that literally could be like years from now, and I won't be there, but that decision would be brought back to the BART board, and that action, if applicable, could also be taken. I do think this question of governance is really, really important. And I'll just give a basic example, you know, passing off this leadership to the state of California and sort of deepening that relationship. I could foresee a future where Stage Gate 3, that, you know, decision is probably going to be around alignment. That's a massive decision where, you know, where is this rail crossing going to be? Where will it land on both sides of the bay? And I could see a world where, you know, CCJPA board might not fully agree with the BART board and might not fully agree with the state of California. I don't think we can say right now with certainty how that conflict and how that very important policy decision would be resolved. We might not know that answer today, but we need to know that answer well before we get to the conflict point. So I do think that this question of governance is something that should be really important to this CCJPA board, and I hope it's something that staff, you know, takes seriously. The last thing I'll say around governance is that while I think the CCJPA board, you are all great, you have been great colleagues, I've sat on this board for a bit. This is all sort of our secondary role. Like you're on city councils, you're the mayor, like we sit on the BART board as our primary responsibility, and CCJPA unfortunately is often secondary. And Link 21 is ultimately going to be a gazillion of dollars. It's going to be, you know, linking 21 counties. We're going to need massive federal funds to make this possible. And I'm not sure that CCJPA will indefinitely be the right place to provide the necessary oversight, accountability, and engagement to make this project, this program successful. So again, we don't know what that future governance looks like, but we need to get to a governance that makes sense for the scale, the scope, and the hugeness of this project, so that it can truly be successful. And someday in my lifetime, I hope to be able to ride whatever Link 21 becomes. So I'll end my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Anyone else? Director Rayburn.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for your hard work on the preparation behind the scenes to make this momentous day. This is a watershed day for the Stage Gate decision toward standard gauge. Do we have slide figure 2.3 available? It's titled Standard Gauge Crossing with Key Partner Rail Projects. This slide, I think, is figure 1.1 in the package, but there was another slide in the appendix. 2.3. It showed all the key partner rail projects.
Director Abram, is that one of the slides that's included in your packet? But
Yes,
not-
it is.
Yeah, we don't have that available electronically, but maybe you can reference the board to that in the packet.
It's page 2-15. It's a beautiful map. But keep the other slide up from figure 1.1 that showed the standard gauge crossing and all the connections. And that new Transbay crossing, of course, is the centerpiece of this project, Link 21. The program also identifies the infrastructure improvements throughout the mega region to improve passenger service and rider experience. My goal is to have these improvements represent early wins, not something off in the far distant future for our grandchildren, but something that we can all experience in the coming years. This stage gate selection of standard gauge highlights the needed prioritization of improvements beyond BART. For example, the Sacramento to Roseville Phase 1 project that has received CRISI funding. It was first funded in September of 2023. Another critical projects to elevate that antiquated Benicio Martinez lift span. Not a week goes by that our Capital Corridor trains are not delayed by 10 to 20 minutes when ship traffic requires opening this 1930 bridge. Blockages will increase in proportion to enhanced rail service. And so this project has to become one of the additional priorities. But I also note, particularly on the map that shows all of our partnerships, that it shares, there will be expanded future service to include a new Oakland transfer. And that's a transfer between BART and whatever service Capital Corridor is running under the bay. There will also be an improved transfer at the Coliseum and a future transfer at Dublin Pleasanton. These are early wins. I'm going to move approval.
Thank you, Director Rayburn. We have 3 more commenters. We're going to try to truncate this. Director Dickinson.
Thanks. I just have a question regarding number 2 and the recommendation. As I come back to this world after an absence of a few years, and Rob, you referred to this in your comments, but it's also in number 2 with leadership from the state of California. Does this action embody any change of the state's role with respect to this project, or is that a reference just to what is the role of the state and is ongoing?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Director Dickinson. So the state has been involved in the project from the earliest stages and has been contributing financially to the project, a much smaller amount. We do have funding through the TIRSA program that was awarded $11 million, which is a state grant. The other thing I do want to mention is the Corridor ID program, which is the FRA program. That program is a pass-through program through the state of California. So formally, the state of California is the recipient of those program dollars. It's a new program, so we're still working through the details of what that will look like. But we've had CalSTA and Caltrans engagement in the project from the beginning. And I'll acknowledge the comments too about governance, agree 100%. That's going to be a big part of this going forward. Any project of this magnitude is going to have broad support, both from state and regional parties.
So Rob, then this does not represent a change with respect to the state's role as far as you're concerned.
The changes in the funding source is going to be primarily a state funding source at this point going forward. That's the biggest change.
Okay, but not in the management, the engineering, the construction, those elements? Or is that yet to be determined?
Yeah, a lot of that's going to, I would say a lot of that's to be determined in the future. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Director Sell.
So I'm Director Sell from VTA. I just wanted to point out on slide 41, the logo needs to be updated for VTA. And then if we can show slide 35. I'm new to this board. It's the slide that says differences in mega region connectivity. Anyway, it shows like with the standard, there's no transfers needed from Sacramento to San Francisco, and that is impressive. Whereas broad gauge needs one transfer. And then also on the slide that says differences in the rail transit timeline savings, giving back time to your day. And it looks like that the standard has lots of, in comparison of the three scenarios presented, the standard gauge has less time. So for a passenger going between there. So I think that time and ease of getting to places is a big reason for new people to want to take these transit lines. So just for me as a new board member, those stand out for me in terms of passenger experience. So I just wanted to thank the current board members and previous board members for making these decisions and providing us this information, which for me, I would be supporting the staff recommendation.
All right, thank you, Director Wright.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak briefly on this. As someone who represents San Francisco, I think while there is certainly broad support for this action, there is not consensus. And to the folks who wish that we would delay this decision or deny this decision, I do not think that would result in any likelihood in a broad gauge crossing. I think it is far more likely to result in no second Transbay crossing at all. So I would associate myself with Director Lee's comments and hope that we as this body take seriously our responsibility to engage in future decisions on governance structure for how this project moves forward, because unless and until there is a lot more clarity on the governance structure, I think that's a responsibility that falls pretty clearly on us. And I hope we take that responsibility seriously as we take this action. With that, I will second the motion that was offered by Director Rayburn.
All right, that concludes this. We have a motion by Director Rayburn, second by Director Wright. Call the roll, please.
Director Byrd,
Aye.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
Aye.
Director Chapman. Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez.
Aye.
Dr. Jade,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Dr. Reed,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Dr. Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright, Director Brewer.
Aye.
And Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chair Haldesheld.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, that brings us to our next item, the CCJPA capital portfolio.
Yep, real quick here. And your packet, as usual, contains updates on all the projects. I have received a number of questions about a couple of things. One is changes at the federal level. How's that impacting projects? And then the broader impacts of inflation. I know we're seeing that across all the projects that we're interested in. On the federal side, as you know, we are very engaged in a number of organizations that are active at the federal level. I was just out last week with the States for Passenger Rail Coalition and Circle, which is the California-based advocacy group. And intercity rail is interesting. It tends to have pretty bipartisan support. Some of the programs that are available through even IIJA have broad support in the freight community. Some of the eligibility includes shoreline freight railroad. So I'm going to say it's early, but positive feelings generally about where we are. We do have some concerns about staffing levels and ability to administer grants. That's obviously going to be a concern. And then we also are hearing that the Quarter ID program, which is really a new process to develop projects, does seem to still have support. It's a really good program to move forward in rail. And so on the federal side, I would say we're in a reasonably good place. Regarding inflation, I'm going to put our projects into two buckets when you're looking at your list. For the smaller projects that are typically implemented in months, not years, we have been adapting to some of the inflationary impacts, and you've made decisions and approved changes in some of those project budgets over time, and allow those projects to continue to move forward, like Agnew Siding, Santa Clara Crossover, the Davis Signal replacement projects. For some of the larger projects like South Bay Connect and the Sac Roseville, the third track project, the impacts of inflation are more challenging because the scale of these projects and the timeline for delivery. Many of the programs that were designed to implement these large projects are really set up with the idea that we have a pretty low inflation rate, which is not the case these days. So I think in our industry, we're broadly working on adapting to that. We are working through some strategies to potentially change our funding approach, potentially change the staging of these projects, and also work with Union Pacific for potential changes as we make service improvements. We're going to keep you posted as those go forward. And then we're working through a CEQA challenge still with the South Bay Connect project. The table of projects in the packet reflects the most up-to-date information we have available, though these numbers are evolving. And I do want to correct, before Director Chapman gets me on this one, the Davis Interlocking project, we do not include in there the $5 million contribution by Amtrak. With that project's fully funded. So we're good on that one, so don't worry. And I do want to mention one thing that we're working on, and this is in some of our engagement with Congress and FRA. One of the real challenges we're having is that we developed all these projects with state dollars because there wasn't any federal money for our projects. But what that means is we go through CEQA, then if you apply for funds and you get federal funds, you have to stop your project and do NEPA. And that means you're delaying a project by a year, 2 to 3 years going forward while inflation keeps ticking upward. So what we're looking at is ways that we can try to either allow CEQA to stand in for NEPA, that's the dream, or we can federalize projects earlier. And one of the great things about the Quarter ID program is that if all these projects become part of a federal action, that then requires that DOT engage and allows us to complete NEPA. So we're having some bumps here with inflation and project delays on our current projects, but we do have some ideas, and we appreciate Direct Chair Haldeshelt and I had some meetings when we were in DC to talk about this very issue: is how can we look at some statutory changes that can make our projects move a little bit quicker. So with that, I'll pause and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, great. I don't have any public comments on this, none on the line, none in the room. If I might, because we do have another action item coming up.
Yep. Let
me suggest if there's anything on this report that you communicate directly with Managing Director Paget. That's okay with everyone. I don't see anybody making the stabbing thing online. So we'll move to the next item, which is the legislation and funding update on state and federal items.
And we're speeding up here. We're catching up.
Because we have an action item in this.
Yes. So at our last meeting, the suggestion was made that that as a board, we take an action to support the extension of cap and trade, and that's in the packet here. I'll first though go through high level very quickly where we are federal and state side. So federal side, just a flag for you, the current transportation reauthorization expires in September of 2026. That means that the bills are already in process of being developed. So we are engaging on that. So stay tuned on that. We included a couple letters in your packet with some of the priorities that we see on the interstate rail side. We were asked by the House to submit those, which we did. On the budget side, as I mentioned, we do see some interesting support. There was an increase in the president's proposed budget of $400 million in CRISI funding. This is a program that has broad eligibility for lots of projects. I know some of you and your communities have applied for funds under that program. So positive sign there. On the state side, I do want to flag a couple of things that were not in the packet. The first is SB 30, which is legislation that restricts the authority of agencies to sell existing equipment, existing locomotives. We have some concerns about that. And I will note that the California Transit Association did take an opposition position on that because it has some unintended consequences of our ability to respond to ridership demand and to reflect the reality of where the market is for locomotives. And then lastly, to mention the California Air Resources Board did approve in 2023 the in-use locomotive regulation that would have required that we transition quickly to zero emission. They've pulled back on that. So that will have some impacts on, and that is in large part because of the changes at the federal level. But we will keep you posted on that. That may have some impacts on how we transition our equipment going forward. So in your packet, there's some language for support of cap and trade. And we do say in that with the presumption of continued support for the TIRSA program. That was not in the governor's proposal. The governor did not include the TIRSA funding in that. So put that before you today to consider.
I don't have any public comments on this. Anybody online? All right, take comments or questions from the board. I don't see anybody online. So we have before us a motion for the chair, authorize the chair to submit letters of support to Governor Newsom. Can you get a motion on that?
So moved.
Director Wright moves, second. Okay. Director Brewer seconds. Roll call.
Director Byrd,
Yes.
Director Broadway,
Yes.
Director Dickinson,
Aye.
Director Chapman,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Alba Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Jane,
Yes.
Director Lee, Director Reed,
Yes.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sell,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Aye.
Director Brewer,
Aye.
Director Vega,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Aye.
Chair Howdeshell.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Where does that take us? Takes us to board directors reports.
Managing director's report.
Manager director.
I'm sorry, I got to keep you 5 more minutes.
You get 5 more minutes.
You know, that's all we need here.
Why I was
A
speeding
lot
up.
of good news to share today.
That's why I was speeding up.
So a couple things to mention. So since we last met, we've had 2 things that have happened. One is we introduced the new fare structure. And I know, and I'll mention, we've seen a jump between Davis and Sacramento, interestingly. I was in a really expensive trip before. So we did that early May. And then in early June, we added 2 more round trips. So we're almost back to full service. So really excited to do that. And again, thanks to the team for pulling that off and to Amtrak for doing that as well. It filled in some big gaps in service. So we're excited about that. It's a real positive change. You can go to the next slide, please. And then on the service side, we're continuing to see ridership move up. I think we're going to see, and this only goes through April, so I think we'll see even more as we move forward. The revenue's up 6%. The exciting thing is on-time performance. We're not quite at 90% for the year, but the last couple of months have been really good. Last month was 93%, which is, I think, the best in probably 5 or 6 years. And I do think a lot of the actions we've been working on, especially with right-of-way safety, has really helped quite a bit. So excited to report that. If you can go to the next slide, please. And then this is in your packet. This is going to change a lot more going forward as we start pushing the promotional stuff on Tap to Ride. We'll continue to show you the number of trips here moving forward, but we're coming back into a positive direction as we reopen the portal for registration. Next slide. And then on fatalities, my most unfavorite slide, but the one we want to keep on top of because we're doing so much in this area. We've had 7 fatalities in the quarter this year. A couple more months left in the fiscal year. This is from the period of October 1st through today. Next slide. And then we heard some comments today about some of our partnerships and where we're active. Just to mention a few things that we've been working on this month. Bike to Work tabling. We've been out in the community talking to folks. It also gives my staff a chance to talk to riders. Excited to support the Oakland Routes, bringing some riders to the train. And then we've been pushing out some surveys with our customers, which is an important thing for us to continue to understand what's going on the ground. And then my last slide. So I have a new team member here. He's not here today, but he will be here at the next meeting. Charles France. So he is our new transportation operations manager. This is a really important position. And he's going to be active in lots and lots of things. So write his name down. We'll bring him to the next meeting. Maybe I'll have him present something just to throw him into the fire. But really excited to bring Charles onto the team. And with that, I will pause and be happy to take any questions.
Questions? I have to look at my screen, see if anybody behind me. Questions virtually? No. Okay, thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. All right, now, any directors' reports? Director Rayburn.
Thank you, Chair Howdesheld. I've recently attempted to book travel to the California Central Coast, specifically San Luis Obispo. It's served by a train from Oakland to San Jose and then continue on a thruway bus. However, that thruway bus actually goes right to Oakland, and yet it's impossible to use the website to book simple thruway bus travel. You have to book both train and bus. And we resolved this back in 2019 when we changed the laws that required that you had to be a ticketed rail passenger to travel on the bus. And we started augmenting service to places like Lake Tahoe. And I'm just bringing this to your attention that there seems to be a barricade. When I call Amtrak, I'm able to get through and book travel, but online, it blocks you from utilizing just the options that show up with our schedules.
All right, noted. Thank you very much.
Great. Other directors in the room? I don't see anyone else. I don't see anyone online with a hand up. I'm gonna take a point of personal privilege. I think let's see if I can get the dates right. Sometime in the latter part of July, I will be taking a train from Bath and Bristol all the way up to Inverness. I'll make sure I take pictures, like Director Chapman did when he was in Peru a few months ago. So looking forward to experiencing the rail in Great Britain. So this brings us to item 7, public comments. Alita Dupree, I have yours.
Thanks again, Chair Bruce Howdesheld and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Folds. Good meeting today. We get a lot done. So I like getting work done. I remember at a previous meeting, hydrogen was mentioned. I think it's something we should look at because it would be really hard to put wires up on a rail corridor that we don't own. I hope someday we could. With Caltrain, that was, I think, about a decade-long effort on a rail corridor that they do own. Any hydrogen we should buy should come from entirely renewable sources. You can get cheap electricity in the middle of the day because there's oversupply of solar, and you can make lots of hydrogen with that. And tap to ride again, very important to keep that going. We're getting more money through that. Being able to bring more of our functions into our capital corridor house. Because I sometimes find in dealing with Amtrak, there's a disconnect between Amtrak staff when it comes to dealing with state-supported rail services, as opposed to their traditional services that you find, such as the long-distance trains and the service on the Northeast Corridor. So we want to make sure that we are approachable when people have questions about our service and how to use it. We should certainly work on our payment. For whatever reason, I still haven't gotten charged for my Capital Corridor ride. Maybe it'll come in tomorrow because credit card things take like 3 days. But anyway, I hope I'll be out there soon on the system. Thank you.
And we have 2 online commenters.
The first is Roland. Please go ahead, Roland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So very briefly on Director Rayburn's travail, I would recommend looking up Flixbus, Flixbus, see if that works for you. Really happy to hear that you will be traveling in my motherland. My recommendation to you is try to find our Hitachi Baby Bullet that run at 140 miles an hour on electrified lines, and then slow down to 100 miles an hour and turn on their diesels on non-electrified lines. But with your permission, I'd like to wrap up by suggesting an alternative, actually a solution to the earlier discussion about Link 21. We need to start thinking about another tunnel after this one. We don't want 2 tunnels conflicting with each other. We just want another one. This next tunnel will be the connection between Alameda and Mission Bay. We know exactly what we're doing in Mission Bay. It's arriving on Mission Bay Drive. And if anybody would listen, it has got a perfect connection with the 7th, not 4th, 7th and Townsend Station, with Muni light rail above Caltrain and BART below Caltrain. And then you got the buses at the surface. It'll be a multimodal hub like you have never ever seen. It'll be just like Europe. The difficult part is on the Alameda side. And there, what you're going to have to do is to figure out how you're going to connect Alameda to the existing BART system, probably in the Coliseum area. And then at that point in time, you'll also have a connection not just to BART, but to Capital Corridor and the airport connector. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you very much, and good travels in July.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker
is Jeffrey Beeben. Please go ahead and speak. Jeffrey. Jeffrey, please go ahead.
Sorry, I missed my unmute button. Hello, board members. It's nice to speak with you again. I'm sure you have missed my voice for a while. My name is Jeff Beeben, retired scientist, member of Scientist Rebellion, and Californians for Electric Rail. Today, I congratulate you on the Link 21 decision to use standard gauge rail. This choice opens up huge possibilities for better transit in Northern California, and it should be celebrated. But next, I'd like to return to a familiar nag of mine, and you can roll your eyes now, the prospect of dangerous, inefficient, unreliable, hydrogen-powered trains potentially for use on Capital Corridor. Besides being inherently inefficient, the rest of the world is giving up on these. I understand the attraction to the new technology combined with faster and cheaper deployment compared with catenary, but I urge you to take the long view. Take your time, negotiate with the commercial rail lines until you're blue in the face, and figure out long-term financing. It is many times the wiser the decision. It will give us more frequent, faster trains, and catenary actually reduces global heating pollution instead of greenwashing another fossil fuel deception. It's likely that the current federal administration will cut the hydrogen hubs anyway, so now is a good time to decide differently. And then thinking lastly again about Link 21, if you can imagine a hydrogen leak in a train tunnel, you will create the world's largest cannon. It's not a good look. Go catenary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, that concludes the June meeting of the Capital Quarter Joint Powers Authority. We will gather again on September 17th at the Solano Transportation Authority at 10 a.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.